Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be unboxing, taking a first look, and reviewing the Meepo Voyager X electric skateboard. And this is an electric skateboard that I've been really excited about for quite some time now, since seeing its initial release, and I'm so stoked to finally be able to review it courtesy of Meepo. So thank you Meepo for sending me this board. So jumping right into the unboxing, the board came packaged really well. It's got this awesome print on the top lid of the box. It features a quick start guide with everything you need to know to get the board up and running as fast as possible. Now the first thing inside is a layer of foam, and then underneath that is the Meepo Voyager X, which we're going to toss to the side for a second and look at all of the accessories. The first of which is the M5S remote controller, which came packaged very nicely in its own box. This remote is very compact. It is so much smaller than I was expecting it to be, and my first impression when holding this remote is that it feels super nice and super ergonomic, though it is a little bit small. The plastic did feel a little bit cheap and flimsy, but overall it felt like a super solid remote, and overall just super comfortable to hold. The next accessory is the instruction manual, which is always important to read before riding the board, and also this card with all of the ratios and speeds. They've also included a set of spare Kegel wheel pulleys with a different number of teeth, so you can change the gear ratio and top speed on the board, which is super nice. Next, there's a tool and hardware kit, which comes with a couple different Allen keys and also some various bolts to perform routine maintenance on the board. The charger is located on the bottom half of the foam cutouts, and this is an absolutely massive charger compared to most other stock electric skateboard chargers. It's got a 3-pronged charge port compared to the standard DC barrel jack, which most other boards use, and it charges at 4.5 amps, which is over double what most stock e-board chargers are. To go with the charger, there's also a standard US wall power adapter. To go with the larger wheel pulleys, they've also included a set of longer 255mm belts. As standard, there's also a T-tool included with some Meepo branding, and then finally a USB-C cable to charge the remote controller. Here's a closer look at all of the accessories included with the Meepo Voyager X. Now that I've gone over all of the accessories included with the Meepo Voyager X, I'm going to go over all of the components used on this board, starting with the deck. The deck is 38.5 inches long, including the nose guards, and 9.75 inches wide at its widest points. It's made from bamboo and triaxial fiberglass. The deck shape is a very popular one, similar to the Gen 3 series from Boosted, though the corners are a little bit sharper and less rounded. The grip tape has a couple Meepo logos on it, which I think look super professional. They're not overbearing, but they also provide character to the board. The deck features this nice gentle radial concave, and it also comes with this squishy foam grip tape for added damping on the board. The wheels that come stock on the Voyager X are these beautiful bright orange 90mm by 60mm 78 adurometer Kegel wheels. I think these wheels look super awesome, and they really add to the aesthetic of the board. The trucks are these 50-degree forged RKP trucks with a hanger profile and width pretty similar to standard caliber trucks, so this board doesn't have super wide trucks. These are pretty standard sized skateboard trucks for an electric skateboard. The rear truck features these built-in motor mounts to house the drivetrain, which, speaking of the drivetrain, this thing is an absolute piece of art. It features a ton of really high quality precision CNC'd motor mounts and belt guards and bash guards. The motors are the 6358 2772 watt motors for a drivetrain combined power output of 5544 watts. Now moving into the electronics and the enclosures, this board features a split enclosure setup. So in the front enclosure we have the battery, which is a 12S 3P 544 watt hour Molicel P42A battery. P42A cells are some of the highest quality, most premium cells on the market, so it's great to see that Meepo is using those. This is also one of the biggest batteries I've seen in a $1,000 electric skateboard, which is always awesome. I think these enclosures look super nice and are very well designed. They also feel super strong, so a huge props to Meepo on that. The charge port is located at the very front of the front enclosure and features that 3-pronged charge port. There's also a small battery indicator just below that. Overall, from both a performance aspect with the battery and an aesthetic aspect with the enclosure, I think Meepo have absolutely nailed this front enclosure setup. Moving on to the rear enclosure houses the ESC, which is the Ling Yi 55B FOC ESC. The rear enclosure features these heat sinks on the side to dissipate heat and keep the ESC running as coolly and as high performance as possible. It also holds the power switch to turn the board on and off. Overall, I think the rear enclosure is also super well designed. It looks awesome and it also feels super strong. Huge props to Meepo on both of these enclosures designs. I think they really match the aesthetic of the deck. They look super awesome, they feel super strong, and overall tie the board together. That wraps it up for all the components used on the Meepo Voyager X, so now that I've gone over all those components, I'm going to jump into a full in-depth review of my experience riding this board. I'll be discussing some of the more objective specs, such as the top speed, the range, and the hill climbing that I've been able to get out of my testing with this board over the last couple months, but I'll also be discussing some of the more subjective features such as the ride feeling, the comfort, and the acceleration and braking. Meepo also sent me their 105mm Cyclone wheels, which currently ship with the Voyager for free. These are basically just the old boosted 105s or the Mad wheels right now. I've used Mad wheels on several of my DIY boards and personal builds, so I'm a huge fan of these wheels. They're actually only 102mm, but this will still increase the top speed of the board, and the comfort and ride feeling will change as a result of the wheels as well, so I'll go over the specs that I got with these wheels also in this section. Meepo advertises a range of top speeds across the Voyager X depending on gear ratios and wheel sizes, so they advertise anywhere from 29 to 40 miles an hour or 46 to 64 kilometers an hour. On my speed test on the stock setup that came right out of the box with the 90mm Kegel wheels, I was able to hit a top speed of 31 miles an hour or 50 kilometers an hour. With the 105mm Cyclone wheels, I was able to hit a top speed of 32.7 miles an hour or 52.6 kilometers an hour, so increasing that wheel diameter increases the top speed, but only very marginally. The 40 mile an hour advertised upper limit is most likely using the smaller 32-tooth wheel pulley and the 110mm wheels that they offer, so it's not going to be a 40 mile an hour top speed straight out of the box with the components they include, but that might be achievable using some of the other components that they sell, such as the larger wheels. 40 miles an hour on this board would honestly be scary fast, so I'm totally good with the lower 30 mile an hour top speed on this board. Meepo advertises on their website that the Voyager X has a range of 31 miles or 49 kilometers. On my range test, which was performed on the stock board setup right out of the box with an 145-pound rider in 90 Fahrenheit degree weather on hilly terrain in the highest speed mode the whole time, I was able to get 24 miles of range, which is obviously a little bit lower than what they've advertised by 7 miles, but this is to be expected as range depends on so many different factors, and I truly believe if the board was ridden far less aggressively and on much flatter terrain, it would be possible to achieve 31 miles of range. However, this is a best case scenario. I'd say the average person is probably looking at anywhere from 25 to 28 miles of range out of this board. For a board currently selling for just under $1,000, I think this range is absolutely incredible, and I'm still blown away at how they were able to get this size of a battery with high quality cells for under $1,000. So huge props to Meepo. It's honestly incredible what you can get for under $1,000 these days in an electric skateboard. The range is absolutely incredible. The advertised maximum hill gradient that this board can make it up, according to Meepo, is 46%, and I have absolutely no way of verifying that because I don't have a hill that steep around me, but I did take it to the steepest hill in Portland, Northwest Brinewood Street, which is insanely steep, and here's some footage from that climb, and as you can see, the board climbs up it no problem. It just flies right up, accelerating seamlessly. The biggest issue that this board has is not the power due to the motor or the electronics, but rather the traction due to the 90mm wheels, because this road is in pretty bad shape. If you're looking for a board that's great for hill climbing, I would highly recommend taking a look at the Voyager X. Of all of the boards under $1,000 that we've tried on this hill, this has been the fastest and most impressive one by a long shot. The hill climbing ability was honestly on par with some of the $15-ish $100 boards that I've tried in the past. Here's some other footage of the board on various hills that are a lot less steep, and as you can see, the board just flies right up. Like I said, this is easily the best hill climbing board that I've tested for under $1,000, so it's definitely worth taking a look at this board if you're looking for a cheaper option for a board that's great on hills. Moving on to the acceleration and braking on this board, I absolutely love both of these. This board is clearly made for people that want to work their way up from being an intermediate rider to an advanced rider. There are 4 speed modes, so there's a ton of variation in terms of the strength of the acceleration and the brakes to work your way up to the strongest mode. And in the strongest mode, the acceleration is super strong and super punchy. If you're looking for a board that just takes off right off the line, then this board in the 4th speed mode is incredible. The acceleration on the board just feels like a premium board in the way and speed that it accelerates very quickly. The brakes are also super strong. They do a great job of slowing you down on hills. The only instance that I've had issues with the brakes is on the steepest hill in Portland that I took this to. I went all the way back on the brakes and the board just wouldn't come to a complete standstill. It isn't a huge issue because it slowed me down enough to just run off the board, but it didn't bring me to a complete stop, which would have been nice and is a good improvement for the future on this board. Both the acceleration and the braking on this board are super smooth, intuitive, and strong, but what really makes this board exciting is the fact that the acceleration is punchy and can throw you off if you're not careful, which I personally love. Fifth up is the ride feeling and comfort, and the most important thing to talk about here is the deck. Here's some footage of me jumping up and down on the deck to show the flex that it has, and as you can see, it's a pretty flexible deck. When jumped on in the middle, the enclosure will hit the street, showing that this board is pretty flexy, which is great because that means that it's going to dampen the vibrations and really make for a smooth ride. This being said, the board actually doesn't feel all that flexy when being ridden. It actually feels relatively stiff and completely different than what I expected. This is great because this board is actually pretty fast, and having a lot of flex at high speed can yield to some speed wobbles and instability. I've had absolutely none of that, so I'm a huge fan of how they've dialed in the flex of this board to be flexible enough, but also rigid enough at high speeds to ensure that there's no speed wobbles and high stability. Now, I have had issues with this deck just due to the shape and concave. For whatever reason, my feet just never feel quite locked in on this board, and I've actually had a couple instances where my feet start to slide off the board and I've had to slow down and almost bail because I've almost slidden off the board entirely. I attribute this to the concave of the deck, which is super shallow, which is nice for comfort, but can be a little bit problematic when it comes to control of the board. That's been my personal experience. Obviously, something like this differs for everyone, but I just thought that I'd share my personal experience on this board with you guys. One of the things about the Voyager that makes it unique is that it's a premium board, but it doesn't adhere to the classic double kingpin, super long, super wide skateboard profile that so many other boards in its category have. This board is meant to be the premium option for people that love to ride street boards and don't need a DKP board with ATs or AT options. For people that want that profile and portability of that boosted aesthetic and look and classic longboard feel, and I think they've done a great job of that. This board doesn't feel like any of the other more premium boards that I've ridden because they all have that exact same style. So the Voyager is definitely a very refreshing option for a premium board. Now, as far as comfort goes, obviously like I mentioned a little bit earlier in this section, the flexiness of the deck does a great job at absorbing a lot of the vibrations, so this board is actually quite comfortable to ride. The 90mm wheels are a little bit small, so it can get a little bit rough and tough to ride on some of the worst condition roads. However, that's why they offer those 105mm Cyclone wheels. These wheels make a huge difference in smoothing out the ride and dampening vibrations, and I absolutely love them. The Mad wheels have been my go-to wheels for the last year now on all of my DIY and personal boards, and while these are Meepo's version of them, they still do a great job of dampening the vibrations. I will say that these wheels are not made by the same people that manufacture Mad Wheels wheels, and they're actually reverse engineered versions of them, so they may seem the same, but they are manufactured and essentially copied from Mad Wheels. So as far as ride feeling and comfort goes, overall pretty comfortable board when it comes to smoothness. As far as ride feeling goes, feels like a street board, but for me, it's not my personal favorite just because I don't feel super secure on it. For miscellaneous topics, I basically just want to talk about who this board is made for, and in my opinion, this board is made for people that love the classic boosted board, classic electric skateboard feeling, but want the performance of the higher end electric skateboards. Of the boosted style electric skateboards, I think this is probably the highest performing board as far as top speed, range, and power goes. This thing is no joke. It does have premium specs while maintaining the integrity and form factor of a classic boosted style electric skateboard. The only noticeable difference is that it is a little bit heavier at 23 pounds or 10.8 kilograms. Now, the flip side to this is that because it's designed specifically to be a street board, that's all it can and ever will be. This board can't be used with all-terrain tires just due to the shape of the deck and the truck designs. The hangers just aren't wide enough to accommodate AT wheels. So this board is stuck being a street board for its lifetime. So it's really only intended for those that are strictly going to be riding street wheels and want a street board. So here are my concluding thoughts on the Meepo Voyager X electric skateboard. Overall, this board is incredible for under $1,000. The top speed is phenomenal with the stock top speed of 31 miles an hour, and the board can go up to 32.7 miles an hour with the 105mm wheels. The range is up to around 28 miles realistically of real world range, which is insane for a sub $1,000 board. The hill climbing is also incredible and by far the best that I've ever tested for a sub $1,000 board. The acceleration and braking are super smooth. There are 4 modes to help you build your way up to the fastest mode, and the fastest mode has a ton of kick to it, which is super exciting for a thrill-seeking board. The comfort of the board is pretty good. This thing is enjoyable to ride. My only gripe with the board is that I just don't feel completely locked in on it when I ride, but that's just a personal thing. Overall, this is a super solid board that I think is definitely worth looking into for anyone looking for a street boosted style electric skateboard with premium specs. That's all I have for this review video. If you guys want to learn more about this board, I will leave a link to it in the description below. And as usual, if you guys have any comments or questions, please let us know in the comment section below. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for lots of other electric skateboard reviews. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video.